Welcome to the Macmillan Report. I'm Marilyn Wilkes, your host, and our guest is James Levinson, the Charles W. Goodyear Professor in Global Affairs and Professor of Economics and Management, and the founding director of the Jackson Institute for Global Affairs at Yale University. As the Jackson Institute's first director, Professor Levinson brings a wealth of international experience to that post. His fields of interest include international economics, industrial organization, economic development, and applied econometrics. Recently, he has studied the impact of HIV/AIDS on unemployment and school attendance in South Africa. Professor Levinson has lived and worked in Senegal, Botswana, and South Africa. One of his projects, now in its 11th year, trains government officials, university faculty, and students and NGO staff from over a dozen countries in South Africa on how to use data to inform policymaking. Today we'll talk with Professor Levinson about the new Jackson Institute for Global Affairs. Welcome, Professor Levinson.
Pleased to be here.
The Jackson Institute just opened its doors a month ago in September. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Let's talk a little bit about it and its mission.
So we really have three missions. They're all interrelated. Our first task, if you will, is that we are the home of the undergraduate major International Studies and the master's degree International Relations. Mm-hmm. Those two degree programs are the focus of our teaching. We also offer courses that are open to all students in Yale College. Mm-hmm. So we have some service courses as well as courses for our majors. The second thing that we've really focused on is bringing practitioners. They're senior fellows at the Jackson Institute. These are very distinguished people who have had careers in global affairs, bringing them into the classroom. Yale is just chock full of wonderful speakers on any given afternoon, and my goal is to get people to come and to engage, not with an afternoon lecture, but teaching an entire semester, or at least several weeks. And we have a number of these Jackson Fellows who are currently on campus and teaching courses.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, the third thing that we focused on, I mentioned there were three,
mm-hmm. Right.
Is offering career services to Yale students, but with a special focus on students who are interested in what you might think of as non-traditional or non-business oriented careers abroad, careers in diplomacy, careers in the State Department, careers in government, careers with NGOs. So we have that office up and running also.
Very good. Let's talk a little bit about the first part of the students and the classwork. You're training students basically to be future leaders. How are you going about doing that?
We're doing that by trying to give them the tools they need in a world that we don't really know what it will look like. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to give them a toolbox, trying to teach courses that use economics, that use political science, courses that draw on the experiences of the Jackson Fellows, so that they will be able to succeed in a pretty agile way and respond to a marketplace that, quite honestly, I have no idea what it will look like 5-10 years from now.
The senior fellows, as you mentioned, are heavy hitters. One of them I know is General Stanley McChrystal. Tell us a little bit more about the fellows specifically and how you chose them.
So we have a wide range, and we wanted to get a group of senior fellows who were quite obviously distinguished, but bring different things to the table. So you mentioned General McChrystal. Stan McChrystal is teaching a seminar on leadership, something he's very, very well qualified to do. I've sat in on the first class or two. It's fascinating, just fascinating. About 20 students, a mix of mostly graduate students, but we saved about 6 or 7 slots for undergraduates. So he speaks on issues of leadership, and he has a group of people coming in talking about leadership, what makes for an effective leader, leadership in an age of 24/7 media coverage. Mm-hmm. He has a fascinating syllabus.
And some of the other ones?
Some of the others. So we have Steve Roach. Mm-hmm. Steve is a former president or chairman of Morgan Stanley Asia. Mm-hmm. In the world of Wall Street economists, he's a rock star. Mm-hmm. Steve is teaching a course titled The Next China, Most of our courses we expected to have maybe, if we were lucky, 50, 60 students. I think Steve has something like 200, 250 students. And he's drawing on his experiences both as an economist and as a business person who's been working in Asia for the last many years. Also on the economics side, Rakesh Mohan is a senior fellow. Rakesh was the deputy governor of the Reserve Bank of India. Sometimes when I'm describing this to friends, I just say, well, he's the Ben Bernanke of India. He is, it's really fun to have an economist teaching a course, not so much drawing on a textbook, although Rakesh is a distinguished PhD economist, but he's also the guy who helped set interest rates for 1.2 billion people. He's thought about these things.
Okay, so you have China covered, India covered. What about the Middle East?
Middle East is fascinating. We're thrilled to have Marwan Mawashir as a senior fellow. Marwan was the former deputy president of Jordan. He was Jordan's first ambassador to Israel and former Jordanian ambassador to the United States. He's doing a course on Middle East peace, has a wonderful simulation exercise. It's a great class.
Your experience, your extensive experience out in the world, I'm sure is going to be influencing what you do at the Jackson Institute. How are you bringing your personal experiences in terms of shaping how the Jackson Institute grows?
So I'm actually going to try to not bring my personal experiences at least too heavily to bear.
Okay.
I'm only one person, and there are many different and fascinating career paths. I've done a fair amount of work in developing countries, and that will be one of the areas of focus for the Jackson Institute. I've been recently working in the field of global health as well as economics, and we will be offering a number of courses in that field. I think there's a lot of interest and a lot of expertise on this campus in the field of global health. There are wonderful programs at the graduate level, but undergraduates haven't traditionally had as much access to those courses, to that field, yet the interest is there. So we'll be adding courses in global health, courses in economic development, courses in development more broadly. What are the institutions required for countries to thrive? But for example, I have virtually no experience in the world of diplomacy, yet that's one of the areas of focus of the Jackson Institute. We have multiple diplomats who are coming or are in residence, and I think that'll be fun too.
Wonderful. And you are teaching a course for undergraduates that I hear is very popular, Gateway to Global Affairs. Tell us a little bit about it. I understand there's 4 parts to it, and I'm wondering how you chose the themes for the class.
So this class is fun. We've chosen, as you noted, 4 topics. The first topic was U.S. immigration policy. What should immigration policy be? What are some of the forces that come to play in thinking about the politics as well as the economics of it? And for that module, I think of these 4 topics as comprising modules of the course. For that module, Gordon Hanson, an expert on immigration policy from the University of California, San Diego, came and joined me. I taught the part on globalization. He taught the part on immigration. It was fun. We have about 200 students in this class, mostly freshmen and sophomores. It's fun to teach a class where last spring, most of these kids were in high school. I love being able to bring global affairs to a new audience.
What about the other 3 segments?
Sure.
So you have the...
So the second segment's ongoing right now. It's on U.S. energy policy and national security. And we have Jim Woolsey, the former director of the CIA under President Clinton, teaching that. He's great. He was a courtroom attorney for 22 years prior to some of his other many jobs, and he's been fascinating. The third module leaves the United States altogether, and we'll look at policy around HIV/AIDS in sub-Saharan Africa. Professor Nicolai Nattrass from the University of Cape Town will teach that module. And then the last module will be Richard Goldstone. Mr. Goldstone is the author of the so-called Goldstone Report on the excuse me, on the conflict in Gaza. He's also, though, known, perhaps less well known, but equally important. He was the chief prosecutor for the Rwandan and the Bosnian genocide trials, and he'll be doing a module on the role of international law.
Wonderful. Where do you see the Jackson Institute in the next 10 years? What are your aspirations for it?
Wow, Marilyn. So we've been open for 2.5 weeks. So
I know.
10 years feels
Putting
like
you on the spot.
10 years feels like a while. I would love to have just an incredible undergraduate major that's well established and that is drawing great Yale College students who are going to go on and really impact the world around them. And it's a major, I think, that will equip them to do exactly that. I'd like to have a world-class master's degree program. And I'd like to continue. I think we're off to a great start with our Jackson Senior Fellows. I want to keep that rolling.
Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
For more information about Professor Levinson and the Jackson Institute, please visit our website at yale.edu/Macmillan Report. Be sure to join us again for another episode of the Macmillan Report, made possible through funding from the Whitney and Betty Macmillan Center for International and Area Studies at Yale.